I love a good copycat recipe that is better than the real thing. And today's recipe for a copycat Starbucks coffee cake is one of them. It's a tender, moist yellow cake topped with a delicious, crunchy, cinnamony streusel topping. It is perfect for breakfast, brunch, with a cup of tea or coffee, or just for a treat. And the best part is it makes just the right amount for 2 to 4 people. So join me in the kitchen as we make small batch recipes with big taste. Hi, I'm Leanne from YourHomeBasedMom.com, and today we are making a small batch version of the Starbucks coffee cake. But if you're looking to feed a few more people than 2 to 4, I do have a full-size version of this coffee cake that you can link to in the description down below. So we're gonna start our coffee cake by prepping our pan, and I like to make this in a 9x5 bread pan, loaf pan. If you have another size pan that's a similar size, it'll totally work. I've lightly sprayed the pan, and then I also like to line it with a piece of parchment paper because it makes it easier to lift the coffee cake out and for a better presentation and for serving. So our pan's ready to go. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and we're ready to mix up our ingredients. So I've got my bowl, my spoon. I've got 2 tablespoons of softened butter. And with all my small batch recipes, I always take a spoon and kind of smash that butter. We're mixing this up by hand, not with a stand mixer or a hand mixer, so I want to get that butter softened up. We are going to add in our sugar. I've got a 1/4 cup of sugar here. Give that a few stirs. We're going to add in 1 egg. All right, and then we're going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. If you're like me, I usually just eyeball it. Because I don't know, can you ever have too much vanilla? And then mix that up. And then we're also going to add in our sour cream. Now I have 2 tablespoons of sour cream. You could also use yogurt, Greek yogurt. I do prefer a full fat yogurt. Like all that fat just makes it taste better. And get our wet ingredients mixed up, and then we'll be ready to add in our dry. You want to try to get it as smooth as you can, but you're going to end up with a few little lumps. That is okay. If those few lumps of butter or sour cream, they will melt into the coffee cake as it bakes. So for our dry ingredients, we are using 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour. I'm using 3/4 of a tablespoon of baking powder, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then about a tablespoon of milk. Use whatever kind of milk you have on hand. Even if you've got buttermilk, go ahead and use some buttermilk. All right, we're gonna mix that all together, and it'll be ready to go into our pan. And don't overmix your batter, just stir it until all that dry ingredients is all incorporated. Now you want your batter to be about the consistency of cake batter. And we're gonna take our lined pan and put our batter in to the bottom. Again, get out that spatula, scrape out all the goodness. Now this coffee cake is cooked just a little bit different. We're going to pop it into our 350 degree oven for about 10 or 12 minutes, okay? And then we're going to pull it out again and add our streusel topping on, and then put it back in to bake for about another 10 to 12 minutes. So we're going to put it in the oven, and while it is baking for that first 10 12 minutes, we're going to mix up our streusel topping. So for our crumble topping, I have got 2 tablespoons of really soft, you don't want it melted, but you want it nice and soft butter in here. I have got a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and a 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of flour. And then we're going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Again, measure or just go ahead and pour it in. Okay, and then we're going to just take this and mix it up, and it's going to be somewhat crumbly. You want it to be crumbly. You may find it easier to actually just stick your hands in there and mix it up by hand. Let's get all of the dry ingredient up off the bottom of the bowl, and once it is all mixed together, you're going to kind of want to break it up into just some little, I don't know, teaspoon-sized clumps. We don't want it to go on top of the coffee cake in one big lump. So kind of break it up and then we will pull our coffee cake out of the oven and put this topping on. So I've let it bake probably about a little closer to 12 minutes, but you want it to bake so you can kind of see it looks dry on top. So it's like a little bit of a skin has formed on top. And we're gonna take it out and add our streusel topping. Now when you go to put your topping on, do it nice and gentle. Remember, this is not cooked all the way through, so if you just kind of throw it on there, it may sink. It's gonna sink just a tiny bit into the cake, which is totally fine, but we want it to sit on top as it continues to bake. Now let's get it covered as well as we can, just breaking it up to little teaspoon-sized pieces. And then we're gonna put it back in our 350-degree oven for about another 10 to 12 minutes until that cake is cooked all the way through. Coffee cake has cooled, and this is where this parchment paper comes in handy. It just lifts out, kind of like magic there. And then I like to serve the coffee cake either totally cooled, or you can still serve it when it's slightly warm. It is easier to cut if it has cooled a little bit. And then we're just gonna take it and slice it into fourths. You could slice it into 8 pieces if you want, just depending on how many you're feeding. But look at that cake, fluffy, light cake layer with that yummy streusel topping on top. It is the perfect thing for your next brunch, breakfast, coffee, tea. Be sure and check out some of my other small batch recipes over here, and click down below to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.